Most coaches, well, they don't really fail at ads. They just don't know the math. They shut off ads way too early, or they're obsessing over trying to lower their cost per lead for their latest webinar. See, they never calculate what they can actually afford to pay. They're just basing it off some arbitrary number of what they think they should be paying. Seven-figure coaches, they know exactly what their tolerance numbers are. So today, I'm going to show you exactly how to calculate yours. Let's get into it. All right, look, every coach tells me the same thing when we start working together. They have no problem spending more if they're seeing the return. But what they don't say is something like, I'm willing to spend to figure it out, and I know that there are no guarantees, because there aren't any. And that's the difference between seven-figure coaches and everybody else. You want to stop chasing 10x returns. That's not sustainable. Those will happen sometimes. You may get it every now and then, which is great. And you want to celebrate that, and you want to try to do that as much as possible. But if you want a 3x return, you have to understand what that actually means in dollars, not vibes. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to share my screen real quick, if I can get to it. Share my iPad. There it is. Good. Okay. Just have to update that, don't I? So the first thing that we want to do is we want to start off with our target return. Okay. And we're going to base this all on a $2,000 offer. Now, you'd have to adjust it depending on what your offer is. But if your offer is $2,000, let's say, then your target return would be 3x ROAS. Now, please do not let all these acronyms and all that stuff confuse you, okay? People throw them out, and I see this happen all the time. It just means return on ad spend, which you probably already know. But what does that really mean? Well, that simply means, how much did you make versus how much did you spend? That's it. So you want to be able to collect $3 back for every dollar you spend, if that makes sense. So that's what that means, ROAS, okay? And then what's your maximum CAC, which is cost per acquisition, right? And client acquisition cost. So typically what you want to do is about $650. So you should be willing to pay about $650 to acquire a $2,000 client. That's a good rule of thumb. So if you want a 3x return, you spend that $650, right? That's your ceiling. That's your tolerance. Your close rate based on that has to be 25% or better. If it's better, awesome. Okay, which just simply means for every 4 calls that you get, that'll be 1 sale. Boom. So $650 client acquisition cost divided by 4 is about $160, give or take, per call. So every time you get a book call, you should be willing to pay up to $160 to get it. That's the math. Okay, so now let's translate that into DMs. Okay, now for DMs, let's just say for every 20 DMs, you get 1 call. Great, that sounds good. Take the $160 per call divided by 20 DMs. Okay, and that means you should be able to pay $8 per message. So in other words, if you're running a campaign asking people to message you, you should be willing to pay about $8 for every person that messages you. Now, something that you're going to want to think about though is if your DMs are around $8, then your booking rate is healthy. You're inside tolerance. If it's over that, that doesn't mean you're necessarily outside tolerance. You're just outside where you want to be, and so you might need to take a look at some things. But once you start doing this, now you're not guessing. Now you're measuring, and that's the whole point. So let's kind of look at this part right here. we're going to kind of look at the tolerance ranges overall. So essentially, if you're booking calls at $160 or less, that's strong. You're doing great. Okay, keep that up. If you're somewhere between 160, to say 225, you want to evaluate that. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. Okay, you just want to take a look at that and see where you can make some improvements. If you're over 225, then you're going to have to make some changes, and what you have is a structural issue. Now, when I say over 225, I don't mean over 225 once or every now and then or sometimes. I mean consistently over 225. So when that's going on, when that's what's happening, then what you want to think about is, one, your offer might be weak. And you might need to tweak it. Okay. Offers change, people change, what people respond to will change. It just happens. You have to be willing to take a look at it. Another thing that it might be is the messaging's off. So you might want to take a look at the messaging that you're using towards your ideal client and see if that's changing. Okay. Number 3, because it will change, your sales process is broken. This will happen too. Maybe your setter isn't doing what they need to be doing. Maybe you've gone into these calls with less energy and you're just not able to close as well as you had been. Whatever it is, maybe you need to take a look at it. And number 4, low booking rate. So you're trying to figure out what happens. You don't want to sit there and blame the algorithm. That's what everybody does. They blame the algorithm, or they blame their cost per 1,000 impressions. That's another one of those things that people throw out there, CPMs. That means how much it costs to show your ad 1,000 times. Let's not blame that stuff, okay? Let's look at real numbers and real math and make sure that we're doing the right thing. So something I want you to think about is, if calls are like, say, $190, don't panic. That's what people who don't make 7 figures do. They panic. You can't do that. If you're going to panic, you're going to be in trouble. At $225, remember, you may still be gathering data. Okay, you may find out that your audience, you can't get your cost per book call at 160. Maybe you can only get it at 170. But when you get to 225, you want to make sure that you have enough data to determine whether or not you need to make changes. One call at 225 doesn't really mean anything. So just remember, if you cut off ads at $185 because you're feeling uncomfortable, then you're never going to learn which lever is broken and what you need to fix. So you can't really do that. Now, let's layer in the direct message tolerance, right? So we were talking about the cost per call. So if it's under $8, awesome. Okay, right. If it's somewhere between $8 and say $12, well, you want to evaluate that. If it's over $12, what do you want to do? Well, it's likely a targeting or creative issue. Okay, so that's what's happening there. So direct message cost alone, that's not going to kill profitability. That's not really how it works. But most people think it is, and they focus on that. That's what they're obsessed over, getting their direct messages down to a certain number, right? High direct message cost plus weak booking rates will kill it. Okay, so it's not just the direct messages. If direct messages could be high, if your booking rates are great, then who cares? So don't confuse that. Call cost is really what matters the most. DM cost is really just a diagnostic. Let's just talk a little bit about where most coaches tend to waste their time. So a lot of them, in fact, almost all of them, they are obsessed over lead costs. They think that somehow getting cheap leads is their goal. So they want to try to take their lead cost from, say, $9 down to $7. You can't scale a business that way. I don't care how much lower you get. That's not going to work. So improving your closing rates, if what you want to do is take your closing rate and go from 25% to 35%. Now that's going to change your business. That would be awesome. Increasing your offer price, that's going to change your business. That's a game changer when you increase it and you can actually sell it. See, the problem is so many of these coaches out there, they're teaching their clients how to lower their ad costs. And it's not that you shouldn't think about your ad costs, because you need these tolerance numbers, but focusing again from using small numbers like that, from 10 to 8 or 10 to 2 or something like that, that's not going to change your business. I'll tell you one thing that really will be helpful is improving your show up rates. And I'm going to give you a tip on that. If you want to know how to improve your show up rates overnight, as soon as somebody books a call, you pick up the phone and you call them. You don't text them. You don't leave them a voice message, you don't send them a voice message. That's not it. You make it personal by making them answer the phone. When you talk to them, they will show up. You'll go from a 50% show up rate to an 80 or 90% show up rate. It'll happen. You don't have to do the whole call then, right? You can just check in. The call could just be, when you call them, you're just like, hey, I'm so excited that you booked. I hope you don't mind me calling. I just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page with a couple of things and that I got the right stuff, so I'm prepared for your call, whatever it is you want to say. But if you will do that, it will change your show up rates. See, the other thing that will really improve your business is increase revenue per client. Okay, you could have an add-on, right? Maybe your base rate's $2,000, but you have a $500 add-on. Do you want to have this as well? It could be a lot of different things. You could have an app. You could have additional bonuses that they could talk to another expert or something like that, where you could increase the revenue from that client. And a back end. Do not discount your back end. Please focus on your back end, okay? Because revenue, well, that increases tolerance, and tolerance makes scaling possible and much, much easier when you do that. Okay, so last little thing here is, this is how you run a business. Here's what you want to look for. You want a 3x or better return. If you're doing that, that's strong. You're going to love your business and it's going to be fun. At 2.5x, okay, it's workable. So you've got to do some of those things I suggested before. You have to figure out which parts you can really improve. If you have a 4x return, well, that's exceptional. 4x is massive. And so once you know your numbers, you can look and see. If you know your tolerance and you operate inside it, then you stop reacting emotionally and you start making decisions like a real operator. And that's how you're doing things now. Now, look, last little thing I just kind of wanted to mention is that if you don't know your maximum client acquisition cost, your maximum cost per call, and your tolerance range, then you're guessing. So stop guessing. It's why most coaches think that their ads don't work, but they actually do work. So if you want to know how 7-figure coaches approach ads, it's all in my next video.